Walls of pride. 3 weeks into Olivia's employment, Sebastian found himself inventing reasons to be home. The penthouse that had once been merely a place to sleep between meetings had become somewhere he lingered. He told himself it was to observe her work, which was, admittedly, impeccable. Under her management, the household ran with a precision that even his tech companies couldn't match. This morning, he sat at the kitchen island, pretending to review documents while watching her arrange fresh flowers. Her movements were efficient, yet graceful, reminding him of how she used to frame photographs, with thoughtful consideration for every element in view. "The Nakamura meeting has been moved to Thursday," she informed him without looking up. "I've adjusted your dinner reservation accordingly." "Thank you," Sebastian replied, then added, "You used to hate cut flowers. Said they were beautiful things, sentenced to death for decoration." Olivia's hand stilled momentarily. "People change, Mr. Westfield. Priorities shift. Not everything changes," he ventured. "You still tilt your head slightly when you're concentrating, just like you did when adjusting your camera settings." She set down her shears with deliberate care. "Is there something specific you need, sir? Otherwise, I have the weekly staff schedule to finalize." Sebastian leaned forward. "Have dinner with me tonight. Not as employer and employee, just two old friends catching up." "We were never just friends, Mr. Westfield," she replied coolly. "And I don't socialize with employers. It blurs professional boundaries." "Then quit," he said impulsively. "I'll double whatever salary you need." For the first time, real emotion flashed across her face. Anger. "Is that your solution to everything? Throwing money at it? Some things can't be bought, Sebastian." The use of his first name gave him hope, even as her words stung with truth. "I'm not trying to buy you, Olivia. I just want to talk." 12 years is a long time. She crossed her arms. "Convenient that you want to talk now. Where was this desire for conversation when you disappeared to Silicon Valley without even saying goodbye? When you changed your number? When you sent that ridiculous check as if that could compensate for—" She stopped herself, visibly regaining control. "I apologize. That was unprofessional." "No, it was honest," Sebastian said quietly. "The first honest thing you've said since you got here." The intercom chimed, saving Olivia from responding. She answered it, then turned to Sebastian. "Your sister is on her way up." Moments later, Vanessa Westfield swept in, designer sunglasses pushed into her honey blonde hair. At 32, she was the only family Sebastian had left and the only person who spoke to him without calculation or agenda. "Seb, you haven't returned my calls in—" She stopped, noticing Olivia. "Oh, hello. Ms. Westfield, I'm Olivia Reed, your brother's household manager." Olivia extended her hand professionally. "Olivia?" Vanessa's eyes widened in recognition. "The photographer? From Boston University?" She shot her brother an accusatory look. "You didn't tell me you'd found her." "He didn't find me," Olivia corrected. "I was hired through his executive office. If you'll excuse me, I need to check on a delivery." After Olivia left, Vanessa smacked Sebastian's arm. "What the hell, Seb? That's her, the girl from your photos. The one you've compared every woman to for the past decade." "Keep your voice down," Sebastian hissed. "And I haven't compared—" "Liar. You broke up with Diane because she doesn't challenge me. Ended things with Catherine because there's no depth to her." They were all missing something, and that something was being Olivia. Sebastian ran a hand through his dark hair. "It's complicated." "Only because you make it complicated. What's she doing working as your household manager? Last I heard, you said she was going to be some famous photographer." Sebastian's expression darkened. "I don't know. She won't talk about it." "Well, you'd better figure it out," Vanessa advised, "because that woman is not looking at you like a pining ex-girlfriend. She's looking at you like she's plotting where to hide your body." Later that afternoon, Sebastian found Olivia in his home office, organizing his bookshelves. Another task that was hardly in a household manager's job description, but that she had taken upon herself. "My sister knows who you are," he said, without preamble. "I gathered that," Olivia replied, not pausing in her work. "It doesn't change anything, doesn't it? You were going to be a photographer, Olivia. You had talent, real vision. What happened?" She shelved a book with more force than necessary. "Life happened, Sebastian. Not everyone gets their dreams handed to them on venture capital platters. That's not fair. I worked for everything I have." "And I'm working now," she said pointedly. "If you'll excuse me." "No." Sebastian moved to block her exit. "I deserve to know why you're really here. Of all the wealthy homes in Seattle, why—" "Mine?" Something in Olivia finally snapped. "Because my sister needs an experimental treatment that costs $800,000, and this job pays enough for me to make the monthly installments. Because Melody has the same genetic condition that took our mother, and traditional treatments have failed. Because sometimes we make choices based on necessity, not desire." Sebastian stepped back, stunned. "I didn't know you had a sister." "You never asked," Olivia said simply. "She was 10 when we were together. Now she's 22 and fighting for her life while insurance companies debate whether her existence is cost-effective." In that moment, Sebastian saw beyond the professional facade to the weight Olivia carried, a burden heavier than any corporate responsibility he'd ever shouldered. "Let me help," he said quietly. "Whatever she needs—" "No." Olivia's voice was firm. "I don't want your charity, Sebastian. I don't want to owe you anything. This job is the one thing I can do on my own terms. Pride." It was something he'd always admired in her, even when it stood like a wall between them. "Then keep the job," he said. "But at least let me meet your sister, as your employer who might be flexible with your schedule for her treatments. Nothing more." Olivia studied him, searching for ulterior motives. Finally, she nodded once. "Sunday. She has good days on Sundays." It wasn't forgiveness or even friendship, but as Sebastian watched Olivia return to methodically organizing his life, he recognized it for what it was, the smallest crack in her armor, and possibly his only chance to make amends for the past he could never forget. Melting frost. The medical center's gardens were designed to create an illusion of escape, carefully arranged flower beds and bubbling fountains meant to distract from the reality of the building looming behind them. Sebastian followed Olivia along a winding path, acutely aware that he'd worn a simple button-down shirt and jeans rather than his usual tailored suits. Something told him Melody Reed wouldn't be impressed by displays of wealth. "Remember," Olivia said as they approached a young woman sketching on a bench. "No mentions of experimental treatments or anything about paying for her care. As far as she knows, my job is just a good opportunity." "I understand," Sebastian replied. "I'm just here." "As my boss," Olivia finished firmly, "who needed to discuss a schedule adjustment." The woman on the bench looked up, and Sebastian was struck by her resemblance to Olivia, the same amber eyes, though set in a paler, more delicate face. Her dark hair was cropped short, and colorful tattoos of wildflowers crawled up her arms. "Well, well," Melody said with a mischievous smile. "The famous Mr. Westfield himself. Liv told me you were demanding, but making her work weekends is a bit much." "Melody," Olivia chided gently. Sebastian laughed, surprising himself. "Your sister is right to complain. I'm a terrible employer. I keep asking her to explain why she alphabetized my spice rack when I don't even cook." "Organization creates peace of mind," both sisters said simultaneously, then looked at each other and smiled. "Family motto?" Sebastian asked. "Mom's favorite saying," Melody explained. "She was a librarian. Could find any book in seconds, but always lost her car keys." She gestured to the space beside her. "Sit, I don't bite, much." Over the next hour, Sebastian discovered Melody was everything Olivia had once been: artistic, outspoken, unfazed by status or wealth. Despite her illness, she spoke with animated passion about her graphic novel project, a fantasy adventure starring a heroine with an incurable magical condition. "Art is the best revenge against a body that betrays you," she explained, showing him sketches. "I control everything on the page, even if I can't control this." She gestured vaguely toward herself. When Olivia left to get them coffee, Melody fixed Sebastian with a penetrating stare. "So you're the one." "The one?" "The reason my sister stopped taking photographs. The reason she doesn't trust anyone with money or power. The guy who broke her so thoroughly she built herself back with all the soft parts hidden inside." Sebastian felt a cold weight settle in his chest. "I didn't know?" "Of course you didn't. You were busy becoming a tech god." Melody's tone wasn't accusatory, merely matter-of-fact. "Here's what you should know. After you left, she sold her camera equipment to help pay Mom's medical bills, then worked 3 jobs through graduation, then poured everything into getting me treatment when the same genetic time bomb started ticking in me." "I'm sorry," Sebastian said, the words feeling pathetically inadequate. Sebastian couldn't tell her the truth, that he'd bought it years ago, imagining finding her someday, giving her back the tools for her passion. "Impulse purchase," he said instead. "It's collecting dust in my closet." Before she could respond, his phone rang. Sebastian answered to hear Tanner's urgent voice explaining that their servers in Redmond had gone down, potentially jeopardizing months of quantum encryption research. "I need to go," he told Olivia, already moving toward his bedroom to change. "Emergency at the research facility." "In this storm, the bridges will be gridlocked," she called after him. 20 minutes later, Sebastian was ready to leave when Olivia appeared in the foyer, car keys in hand. "I'm driving you," she stated. "The roads are dangerous, and you're too distracted to navigate safely." "That's not in your job description," he protested. "Neither is planning your funeral after you hydroplane into Puget Sound," she countered, already moving toward the private elevator. The drive to Redmond was tense. Sheets of rain reducing visibility, wind buffeting the vehicle. Olivia navigated with the same focused precision she brought to everything, occasionally glancing at Sebastian as he made call after call to the ultimate test. The fallout from the server crash consumed Sebastian's life for the next 2 weeks. What should have been a minor technical issue had escalated into a potential security breach, with early indications suggesting industrial espionage. Sebastian worked around the clock, sometimes not returning to the penthouse for days. When he finally emerged from the crisis, haggard and exhausted, he found his home transformed. The spare bedroom had been converted into a temporary office, complete with multiple monitors and a dedicated setup for secure video conferencing. "You moved my entire workstation," he observed as Olivia showed him the space. "You needed a proper home command center," she replied. "The dining table wasn't sustainable for 14-hour workdays." Sebastian studied her, noting the shadows under her eyes. "You've been working overtime, too," she shrugged. "It's my job to anticipate needs." "Not at the expense of your own well-being or your sister's. How is she?" Something flickered in Olivia's expression. "Managing. Her doctor wants to adjust her treatment protocol." Sebastian sensed there was more she wasn't saying. Before he could press further, his phone rang, his lead attorney calling with updates on the security breach investigation. By the time he finished the call, Olivia had discreetly withdrawn. That evening, Sebastian found her in the kitchen, methodically arranging meals in his refrigerator. "These are labeled by day," she explained. "Each container has reheating instructions. I've taken a few days off." "Is everything all right?" Olivia hesitated, then spoke with careful neutrality. "Melody's condition has worsened. She needs more intensive observation during this treatment adjustment." Sebastian set down his coffee mug. What can I do? Nothing. I've arranged everything. Her tone made it clear the subject was closed. The household will run smoothly in my absence. Tanner has the contact information for a temporary replacement should any issues arise. I don't care about the household, Sebastian said, stepping closer. I care about you. And Melody. Olivia looked up, surprise briefly replacing her professional mask. That's kind of you, but unnecessary. Let me come with you, he offered impulsively. Absolutely not. Her response was immediate. This isn't a business trip, Sebastian. It's my sister fighting for her life while a team of doctors debate whether an experimental gene therapy is worth attempting on someone with her prognosis. The words hung between them, Olivia clearly having revealed more than she intended. I understand, Sebastian said quietly, but my offer stands. Not as your employer, as someone who... He stopped, unsure how to define what he was to her now. Not quite an ex-lover, not exactly a friend. As someone who cares. For a moment, vulnerability showed in her eyes. Then her phone chimed with a text message. She checked it, and her expression tightened. I need to go, she said, gathering her things. The doctors want to meet earlier than planned. 3 days passed without word from Olivia. Sebastian tried to focus on work, but found himself checking his phone constantly. On the 4th morning, unable to bear the silence any longer, he called the medical center directly. I'm trying to reach Melody Reed's room, he told the receptionist. I'm sorry, sir. Ms. Reed has been transferred to our intensive care unit. Only immediate family members are permitted to visit. Ice formed in Sebastian's veins. He ended the call and immediately phoned Tanner. I need you to contact Dr. Julian Hammond at the Westfield Biomedical Institute. Tell him I need a consultation on an aggressive genetic condition similar to von Hippel-Lindau disease. Then clear my schedule for the next 48 hours. 2 hours later, Sebastian strode through the medical center's main entrance, accompanied by Dr. Hammond, one of the country's leading genetic specialists whose research was primarily funded by Sebastian's philanthropic foundation. At the ICU reception desk, Sebastian's status as a major hospital donor proved sufficient to at least locate Olivia. A nurse directed them to a small waiting area where they found her curled in an uncomfortable chair, staring blankly at a vending machine. She looked up, momentary confusion giving way to understanding. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you, at least not alone, Sebastian replied, sitting beside her. This is Dr. Hammond from the Westfield Institute. He specializes in gene therapies for hereditary conditions. Olivia straightened, suddenly alert. Dr. Hammond? The one who published the paper on CRISPR applications for VHL variants? The doctor nodded. Mr. Westfield mentioned your sister's condition has similarities to VHL. I'd like to review her case if you're amenable. For the first time since he'd known her, Olivia appeared completely at a loss. The experimental treatment her doctors were considering, it's based on your research, she said slowly, but they said the protocol is still pending approval for compassionate use exemptions. Pending my final review, Dr. Hammond confirmed, which I can expedite given the circumstances. Olivia's gaze shifted to Sebastian, understanding dawning. You did this. I made a phone call, Sebastian said simply. The rest is medical science. Over the next 18 hours, Sebastian witnessed a side of Olivia he'd never seen. Not the carefree girl from college, nor the efficient professional, but a fierce advocate fighting for her sister's life. She questioned doctors relentlessly, absorbed complex medical information, and refused to leave Melody's side except when forced to by hospital protocol. During one such mandatory break, Sebastian found her in the hospital garden, staring at the same bench where they had sat with Melody weeks earlier. The doctors seem optimistic, he ventured, offering a cup of decent coffee he'd acquired from a cafe several blocks away. Cautiously, Olivia corrected, accepting the coffee. The treatment is still experimental, and even with your foundation covering the costs, there's no guarantee it will work. Sebastian sat beside her. Melody is strong, like her sister. She shouldn't have to be strong, Olivia said, voice cracking. She should be starting her career, dating inappropriate people, making mistakes, not fighting the same disease that took our mother. Without thinking, Sebastian wrapped an arm around her shoulders. To his surprise, Olivia didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into him, allowing herself a moment of vulnerability. "I never told you about my family back then," she said quietly. "My mother was already sick. That's why I had those 3 campus jobs. That's why I was so driven with my photography. I thought if I could just get good enough, fast enough, I could support them both." "You should have told me," Sebastian murmured. "I would have—" "What? Given me money?" Olivia pulled back slightly. "That's exactly why I didn't tell you. You were already so focused on becoming successful, on proving yourself. I didn't want to be another responsibility." The truth of her words struck him like a physical blow. He had been obsessed with success, with validation through achievement, so much so that he'd convinced himself leaving her behind was doing her a favor. "I'm sorry," he said, the words inadequate but necessary. "Not just for now, but for then. For disappearing, for the check I sent thinking it would somehow make up for walking away." Olivia was quiet for a long moment. "I tore that check into pieces," she finally said, then cried for 3 days straight. Before Sebastian could respond, his phone rang. The caller ID showed his company's board chairman, a call he would normally never ignore. He silenced the phone. "That looked important," Olivia observed. "It's not," Sebastian said with certainty. "Not compared to this." Later that evening, as Melody's conditions stabilized enough for Olivia to rest, Sebastian received another call from his chairman, this one more insistent. He stepped into the hallway to answer. "The Nakamura deal is falling apart," the chairman informed him. "They're threatening to partner with Quantum Nexus instead. You need to be in Tokyo by tomorrow evening to salvage this." "I can't leave right now," Sebastian replied, watching through the ICU window as Olivia spoke softly to her sleeping sister. "Family emergency." "Family?" the chairman repeated incredulously. "Sebastian." Beyond the past dawn broke over Seattle, pale light filtering through the hospital windows as Sebastian jerked awake in the waiting room chair. For a moment he was disoriented, the unfamiliar surroundings a stark contrast to his usual morning. Routine of market reports and strategy meetings. Reality came rushing back as Olivia appeared in the doorway, exhaustion etched across her features, yet something new in her eyes, a cautious hope. "Melody's responding to the treatment," she said, voice rough from lack of sleep. "Her markers have improved by 18%. Dr. Hammond says it's an unusually strong initial response." Sebastian stood, working out the kink in his neck. "That's incredible news." "It's because of you," Olivia admitted, the words clearly difficult for her. "If you hadn't brought Dr. Hammond, if the foundation wasn't covering the costs—" She trailed off, then squared her shoulders. "Thank you." "You don't need to thank me," Sebastian replied. "I'm just glad I could help." A nurse approached, informing Olivia that Melody was awake and asking for her. As Olivia turned to go, Sebastian's phone, which he'd finally turned back on, lit up with a barrage of missed calls and urgent messages. "You should deal with that," Olivia said, noticing his expression. "I know you've neglected work because of us." "It can wait," Sebastian insisted. Olivia shook her head. "No, it can't. I overheard your conversation yesterday. The Nakamura deal? That's the quantum encryption partnership you've been working toward for years. You can't throw that away." Sebastian studied her, surprised she had been paying such close attention to his business dealings. Some things are more important. Yes, she agreed. But not everything is an either-or choice, Sebastian. That was always your problem, seeing the world in absolutes. Success or love, career or relationships, go to Tokyo. Melody and I will be fine. Something in her tone had shifted, the wall of professional detachment replaced by something more complex, but infinitely more real. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I'm sure that I don't want to be the reason you sacrifice something important." She replied, "Not again. Not like this." 3 days later, Sebastian's private jet touched down in Seattle after the most efficient Tokyo trip of his career. The Nakamura deal was secured, albeit with concessions he would never have considered before, including a philanthropic partnership focusing on medical applications of quantum computing. As the car drove him from the airport, Sebastian found himself directing the driver not to his penthouse, but to the medical center. When he arrived, he was surprised to find Melody's room empty. Panic seized him until a nurse explained, "Ms. Reed was discharged this morning. Her condition stabilized, enough for home monitoring." Outside the hospital, Sebastian hesitated. He had no right to intrude on Olivia's private life, yet the thought of returning to his empty penthouse seemed unbearable. On impulse, he called Tanner. "I need an address," he said. An hour later, Sebastian stood outside a modest craftsman home, in a quiet neighborhood far from Seattle's glossy downtown. The small front garden was overflowing with wildflowers, beautiful in their untamed state. So different from the manicured landscaping of his own properties. Before he could reconsider, he rang the doorbell. Moments passed before the door opened, revealing Olivia in jeans and an oversized sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. The sight of her, natural, unguarded, made his rehearsed speech evaporate. "Sebastian," she said, genuine surprise in her voice. "Tokyo went well? How did you know I was in Tokyo?" A slight smile touched her lips. "I still have access to your calendar." "Right," he said, suddenly feeling foolish standing on her porch with the small package he'd brought. "I wanted to check on Melody and you." Olivia studied him for a moment, then stepped back. "Come in. Melody's resting, but she'll be glad to know you stopped by." The interior of the house was exactly as Sebastian might have imagined. Walls covered with artwork, bookshelves overflowing, and everywhere signs of creativity and life. No sleek minimalism, no designer furniture. Just a real home. In the living room, Olivia gestured toward a worn but comfortable-looking couch. "Can I get you anything? Tea? Coffee?" "Nothing, thank you." Sebastian sat, setting his package on the coffee table. "How is she really doing?" Olivia's expression softened. "Better than expected. The doctors are cautiously optimistic about the treatment protocol. Dr. Hammond has arranged for continued monitoring through the Westfield Institute." "Good," Sebastian said. "That's good." An awkward silence fell between them, filled with 12 years of unspoken words. "Why did you really come, Sebastian?" Olivia finally asked. He took a deep breath. "To give you this." He pushed the package toward her. "And to say something I should have said years ago." Olivia hesitantly opened the package, revealing not the expensive camera he'd mentioned before, but something far more precious, a leather-bound album. As she turned the pages, her breath caught. Inside were dozens of photographs, her photographs, from their university days. Images she'd believed lost forever when she sold her equipment. "How did you—" "I kept them," Sebastian admitted. "Every print you ever gave me, every exhibition program, even the negatives you left in my apartment that last week." Olivia traced, a finger over an image of sunrise over Boston Harbor, one of her first successful compositions. "I can't believe you saved these." "I saved everything," Sebastian said quietly, "except what mattered most." She looked up, meeting his gaze directly. "And what was that?" Us, he said simply. I convinced myself I had to choose between success and love, that I couldn't have both, that somehow loving you would mean failing at my ambitions, or that my drive would hurt you eventually. He leaned forward. I was wrong, Olivia. Monumentally, catastrophically wrong. Olivia closed the album carefully. We were young. Yes, but that's not an excuse. I hurt you, then disappeared, to avoid facing what I'd done. Why now? She asked. Because I suddenly reappeared in your life? Because of Melody? Sebastian shook his head. Because watching you these past weeks, seeing your strength, your determination, the way you fight for what matters, made me realize what I lost. Not just the girl from college, but the woman you've become. He reached for her hand, half expecting her to pull away. She didn't. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he continued, or for us to pretend the past didn't happen. But I am asking for a chance, not to go backward, but to see if there's a way forward. Olivia was silent for a long moment. I took the job because I needed the money, she finally said. But I also took it because part of me needed to prove something, to myself, maybe to you, that I could walk into your world on my terms, that I could be in your presence without falling apart. And, Sebastian prompted. A wry smile touched her lips. It backfired spectacularly, because seeing you again made me realize something too. That despite everything, despite all the walls I built, there's a part of me that never stopped wondering, what if? From another room came the sound of movement, then Melody's voice calling for Olivia. I should check on her, Olivia said, standing. Stay? She'd like to thank you properly. I'd like that, Sebastian replied. As Olivia left the room, Sebastian noticed a small digital camera on the bookshelf, not expensive or professional, but used with a well-worn grip. Beside it sat a stack of recently printed photographs, landscapes, street scenes, and one of Melody laughing in the hospital garden. Olivia had started taking pictures again. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly, not yet. But it was something even more valuable, a new beginning. 18 months later, Sebastian stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean, watching as Olivia adjusted her camera settings, capturing the sunset with the same intensity she brought to everything. The wind tousled her hair, now streaked with natural highlights from months spent outdoors, rather than in offices and other people's homes. Got it, she announced triumphantly, reviewing the image on her display. Perfect light. I told you this spot was worth the hike, Sebastian replied, pulling her close as they watched the sun sink toward the horizon. In the distance, they could see the distinctive silhouette of the research and recovery center they had founded together, a place where patients like Melody could receive cutting-edge treatment while being surrounded by natural beauty and artistic inspiration. Melody herself was now the center's creative director. Her genetic condition stabilized enough for her to work part-time leading art therapy programs for patients. Her graphic novel, published 6 months earlier, had become an unexpected bestseller, resonating with readers far beyond its intended audience. They're expecting us for dinner, Olivia reminded him, packing up her equipment. Melody's making her infamous paella. One more minute, Sebastian said, taking her hand. I want to remember this. The path that had brought them here wasn't straight or simple. There had been difficult conversations, painful acknowledgments, moments when the past threatened to overshadow the present. Sebastian had stepped back from day-to-day operations at Westfield Technologies, focusing instead on the foundation and its medical research initiatives. Olivia had established herself as a respected photographer, documenting patients' journeys through illness and recovery. They had built something neither of them could have imagined during those years apart, a partnership that honored both their individual strengths and their shared vision. What is it? Seba. Heart over fortune. 6 months transformed Harrison Blake in ways no one from his corporate world would recognize. His calendar, once dominated by board meetings and investment reviews, now included school performances, soccer games, and Saturday morning pancake breakfasts. His penthouse had undergone subtle changes, too. A small collection of dinosaur models appeared on shelves, astronomy books found homes on coffee tables, and photographs of twins with gap-toothed smiles replaced modern art on walls. Today, he stood in his kitchen attempting to make dinosaur-shaped pancakes, while Evelyn and Nathan perched on stools at the counter. It was their first overnight stay at his home, a milestone Olivia had finally approved after months of consistent visits and growing trust. "That doesn't look like a stegosaurus," Nathan observed critically as Harrison flipped a misshapen pancake. "The plates on its back are all wrong." "It's an artistic interpretation," Harrison defended with mock seriousness. Evelyn giggled. "It looks more like a turtle." "A turtle with very questionable life choices," Harrison agreed, sliding the pancake onto Nathan's plate. "Next up, Evie's constellation pancake." As he poured batter in the rough shape of Orion, Harrison's phone buzzed. Patricia, his executive assistant, was calling on a Saturday morning. He glanced at the twins, happily decorating their pancakes with fruit, then stepped into the hallway to answer. "This better be important, Patricia." "Sir, there's an emergency board meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning." Her voice was tense. "I wasn't given details, but Jerome Blackwood is behind it." Harrison's jaw tightened. Blackwood, his largest investor, had been increasingly vocal about his disapproval of Harrison's reduced hours and lack of focus over the past months. "I'll be there," he said curtly, ending the call. When he returned to the kitchen, his smile firmly back in place, Evelyn was looking at him with those perceptive eyes that sometimes seem too wise for a 6-year-old. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Of course," he assured her. "Just a work call." "Mom says you have a very important job," Nathan commented through a mouthful of pancake. "Do you have to go to work today?" Evelyn's voice held the slightest tremor of disappointment. "Absolutely not." Harrison ruffled her hair. "Today is our day. Remember the plan? Pancakes, then the planetarium, then building that enormous dinosaur Lego set." Their smiles returned, and Harrison pushed thoughts of tomorrow's meeting aside. The day unfolded perfectly. Evelyn's wonder at the planetarium show, Nathan's intense concentration as they assembled the Lego Tyrannosaurus Rex. By evening, when Olivia came to pick them up, Harrison felt the familiar ache he always did at goodbyes. "Did you have fun?" Olivia asked the twins as they gathered their backpacks. "Harrison knows all the constellations," Evelyn reported enthusiastically. "And he only messed up the dinosaur pancakes a little bit," Nathan added generously. Olivia's eyes met Harrison's over their heads, a small smile playing at her lips. The tension that had characterized their early interactions had gradually evolved into something like partnership, and occasionally, in unguarded moments, something that reminded him of what they'd once shared. After the children had hugged him goodbye and bounded down to the lobby with Harrison's security team, Olivia lingered at the door. "Thank you for today," she said. "They've been talking about this sleepover all week." "They're welcome any time," Harrison replied. "I miss them already." Olivia studied his face. "You've surprised me, Harrison. I didn't think you'd stick with this." "Neither did I," he admitted. "But they've become the most important part of my life." Something in his tone made her expression turn serious. "Is everything okay? You seem distracted." Harrison hesitated, then decided on honesty. "There's a board meeting tomorrow. It might be nothing." "But you don't think it is," she said perceptively. "No." He leaned against the doorframe. "Blackwood's been questioning my commitment since I started leaving the office at reasonable hours to make school events." Olivia's face clouded. "I never..." Wanted to cause problems for your business. You didn't. I made choices, good ones. He smiled reassuringly. I'll handle Blackwood. After she left, Harrison spent hours reviewing company reports and financial projections, preparing for whatever confrontation awaited him. By the time he arrived at Titan Investments headquarters Sunday morning, he was armed with irrefutable evidence that the company had continued to thrive under his adjusted schedule. The boardroom fell silent as he entered. 8 faces turned toward him, his most powerful investors and longest-serving executives. Jerome Blackwood, silver-haired and imposing at 72, sat at the head of the table in Harrison's usual seat. Gentlemen, Harrison nodded, taking the only empty chair. I understand there are concerns to address. Blackwood slid a tablet toward him. On the screen was a tabloid article, the headline screaming, Titan CEO's secret family revealed. Below, photos of Harrison with the twins at the planetarium yesterday and with Olivia at a school function last month. Care to explain why I'm learning about your apparent children from gossip rags? Blackwood's voice was cold. Harrison's anger flared, but he kept his expression neutral. My personal life is not board business, Jerome. It becomes board business when it affects Titan's reputation and your focus, Blackwood countered. These entanglements explain your distraction these past months. Distraction? Harrison raised an eyebrow. Our Q3 earnings exceeded projections by 17%. The Singapore expansion is ahead of schedule and under budget. By every measurable metric, Titan is performing exceptionally well. Despite your reduced presence, not because of it, Blackwood insisted. The board has concerns about your commitment going forward. Harrison looked around the table, noting which members avoided his gaze. You've already discussed this without me, he realized. What exactly are you proposing? Blackwood straightened. We're prepared to offer you a graceful transition. Retain your ownership stake and board seat. Step back to Chairman Emeritus, and let someone with fewer personal complications take the helm as CEO. The room seemed to hold its breath. In another life, just 7 months ago, this kind of challenge would have triggered Harrison's most ruthless instincts. He would have counterattacked, leveraged his considerable power, and destroyed anyone who threatened his position. Now, he found himself oddly calm. Those personal complications have names? He said quietly. Nathan and Evelyn. They're 5 years old. They like dinosaurs and stars and terrible jokes. And yes, they're my children. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. For years, I've defined success by the size of my bank account and the scope of my influence. I believed emotional attachments were weaknesses to be avoided. I was wrong. Harrison, one of the friendlier board members, began. No one's questioning your personal choices, aren't you? Harrison cut him off. Because that's exactly what this meeting is about. You're asking me to choose between being a father and being CEO. We're asking you to prioritize what you've spent 15 years building, Blackwood corrected. Harrison smiled, a genuine smile that took the board by surprise. I already have. He reached into his briefcase and withdrew a folder, placing it on the table. Inside, you'll find my terms for a full buyout of my controlling interest in Titan Investments. Shocked murmurs rippled around the table. You can't be serious, Blackwood sputtered. I've never been more serious. Harrison's voice was steady. I started Titan with nothing but ambition and determination. I can do it again if necessary, but I won't miss another school play or weekend with my children because you think fatherhood makes me weak. This is impulsive and reckless, Blackwood warned. Sleep on this decision before my terms are non-negotiable and time-limited. Harrison interrupted. You have until Friday to accept, or I'll take this very public. I wonder how the market will react to news that the board tried to oust the founder because he dared to have a family life. Without waiting for a response, Harrison walked out, his heart pounding but his mind clearer than it had been in years. Outside, Instead of his usual town car, he hailed a taxi and directed the driver to Olivia's address in Brooklyn. It was a Sunday afternoon. He knew she'd be home with the twins. The journey gave him time to think about what he'd just done, and surprisingly, he felt no regret. When Olivia opened her door, her expression immediately shifted to concern. "Harrison, is everything okay? The twins are napping?" "I resigned," he said simply. "What? Why?" She ushered him inside, leading him to her small but cozy living room. Harrison explained the board meeting, watching her face cycle through shock, anger, and finally, worry. "You shouldn't have done that," she said, when he finished. "Not for us." "I did it for me," he corrected her. "They wanted me to be the person I was before, someone who put profit above everything else. I'm not that person anymore." He took her hand tentatively. "I don't want to be that person again. But your company, everything you've built, is just a company." He squeezed her hand. "I can build another one differently this time. One that values balance and recognizes that success isn't just measured in dollars." The sound of small feet on the stairs interrupted them. Evelyn appeared, rubbing sleep from her eyes, followed closely by Nathan. "Harrison!" Evelyn exclaimed, running to hug him. "Did you come to finish our Lego dinosaur?" Harrison pulled them both into a hug. "I thought maybe we could have a little extra time together this week." "If thou